Hello, everybody. Hi, it's so great to see you. Thanks for joining me today. Just to let you know, my dad just got home about half an hour or so ago from the hardware store. And since he arrived in the driveway, he has been busy. Can you hear it? He is sanding something out at his little workshop. Can you hear that? So if you hear a buzzing noise, that's my dad out there working busy as a bee. Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be stitching out a photo ornament. I'm going to bring you through the whole thing. This is going to be my third stitch out. You know, when you develop something new, you give it a few test tries and make little improvements. I'm stitching out my third one today. And then I'm going to show you, if you have an Embrilliance, how you can digitize your own. But I'm going to give it a few minutes before we get started so that everybody who wants to come in during the live can join us, right? Donna asked me a question right before I hit the start button, and she said, can you use, it looks like urine Catholic paper piecing. It has a glossy coating. I'm not sure what that is. Can you please elaborate just a little bit, Donna, because I am really confused. Is it like freezer paper that has the plasticky coating side on one side? Hello, everybody. It's so great to see y'all. Y'all, we have been, look at our little baby pumpkin. Not pumpkin, watermelon. We just got that out of the garden the other day. Isn't that so dang cute? I don't know if it's the variety that we grew. None of our watermelons got big. A couple of them were a little bit bigger than that, but that's been the average size of our watermelons this year. We have one more out there, and I think because the weather's turned cooler, it's like softball size. I think that's as big as it's going to get before it's ready to come in the house. But isn't that so dang cute? Y'all, we opened our farm stand last week. It's been going really good. We have some produce out there and quite a few pumpkins. I'll put a little mug rug out there. Found out some things about food cottage laws. So in Virginia, I can't bake loaves of bread or cookies and just put them in the farm stand to sell. So we have to rethink that. But yeah, our little farm stand is open. Oh, a Uline catalog. Okay. Uline catalog. Yeah, you could use that paper. I have some of my Nana's phone books. Phone books make great for paper piecing. Yeah, it's a personalized size watermelon. Isn't that so dang cute? I just had to share that with y'all. So, this is my second ornament. So, let me just hold that up. Isn't that so dang cute? See the little hanger that's attached to it? On the back of this one, I just used some Christmas fabric. This is my second one. Okay, so I wanted to offer these in the farm stand and in my Etsy shop, right? Because people love customized ornaments, right? But I wanted them to be fabric, right? So I knew that I had to make up a blank because you can't just buy blanks that look like this, right? Made out of fabric. So I knew I had to make my own. What a great way to utilize my embroidery machine, right? So let me just walk you through my process in creating where we are at today, right? My first one, this started off as white fabric and I sublimated the photo on there, right? But my first one, I put the white fabric on here and stitched the whole thing and then sublimated the photo on there. And the heat from the heat press wrinkled up and crinkled my ornament. So I knew that I had to create the picture first, right? Print the picture first and then stitch the ornament. So this is my second one, and I think the hanger is a little bit too big on this one, don't you think? See that? So I revised the hanger, and And this one, I used 2 layers of warm and natural batting, and there was a piece of cutaway stabilizer in the middle. And I think that the stabilizer gives the ornament some great support, right? It's still bendy, but it keeps a nice shape. But if you listen, I don't know if you hear it, you can hear the cutaway stabilizer bending. So I'm going to revise that today too. Wanda said, if we don't have Embrilliance, can we send a photo to you to make? Yes, I'm going to offer finished ornaments in my Etsy shop, probably starting next week sometime. Today I'm stitching out my 3rd design to see if it's a keeper or if I still need to make some tweaks to it. And today I have gold hangers coming in the mail. Matter of fact, there's my mail lady right there. And so it'll come with a gold hanger. Right, I didn't want to put them in the Etsy shop till I got those in. But, so do y'all want to get busy stitching? And when we're done stitching out my 3rd try, my 3rd example, right, I'm going to bring you into Embrilliance and show you how to digitize your own ornament. You don't have to use the photo if you don't have a way of printing, right? You could just use Christmas fabric and you could embroider a monogram or someone's name on it, right? You could always add some kind of customization to your ornament, but I'm going to show you how to digitize the shape and the little hanger so that you could create your own. Okay? Lisa said, I can't hear either. Oh no. Donna said, I can't hear. You can't hear me? I don't want to move on if y'all can't hear me. Hold on a second. Let me just pull my video up. Make sure we're moving. I hear it on my phone. Okay. Oh, we don't hear your dad in the workshop. Okay, I get it. That's good. He is some distance away. I can hear it like he's just outside my window here. Okay, I misunderstood y'all. Okay, I'm glad you can hear me. Okay, so what I've done is I'm going to make this a double-sided ornament and not use Christmas fabric on the back. Okay, so I printed off 2 photos that we're going to use in today's example. Okay. I get it now. I'm glad y'all can't hear him. It sounds like a buzzing fly in my ears, what it sounds like. That's exactly what it sounds like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down to my table here, and we're going to get this set up because I have my photo printed. I have my hoop here. I haven't even hooped the stabilizer yet. And we're going to start from scratch, okay? And this is what we're making, or a revised version of this. All right. Pressing. Oh, nope. I clicked the wrong camera. All right, so here's my 2 photos, and I'm just going to separate them. I'm not going to do any fussy cutting or nothing. I'm just going to separate them because one I'm going to put on the front and one I'm going to put on the back. Okay? So we have our photos ready. I have my hoop, and what I like to use is a, what do they call this? A woven wash away stabilizer. I haven't even cut that yet. I'm just going to measure that out real quickly. Make it a little bit bigger than my hoop. This is a 5x7 hoop. All right. And we're going to hoop this stabilizer. Eugenia says, I've never gotten on here live. So great. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Hazel, no. You've been in the hospital? I did not know that. I did not know that, Hazel. I'm glad you're home. All right, so let's get this hooped. I like to tighten it just a little bit before I push it all the way in there. Yeah, I'm glad y'all can't hear him because it is loud where I am. And he has no idea I'm live right now, y'all. He is just busy doing his thing out there, living his life, sanding away at whatever he's creating out there. Painting fabulous florals. Hi. Thank you so much. Let me just get this tightened up. There we go. So there's my hoop, right? One layer, wash away stabilizer. That's what I like to use. And I have my design already transferred to my embroidery machine. So let me just pull that up. There we go. Now this ornament is 4 inches, or the circle is 4 inches by 4 inches. So that's a good size ornament, right? I didn't want to make it too much smaller than that because I feel like this is a good size for you to actually see the photo, right? So let's go move over to the embroidery machine and we're going to get started. And the first thing that I did when I designed this ornament is I designed a placement stitch. So we're going to put the hoop on the machine and it's just going to draw a circle right in my hoop. And that is an indication of where I can start creating in the hoop my ornament. Okay, so let's come on over to the embroidery machine and let me get this hoop in there. Y'all, I've just been having so much fun with this thing. All right, and what I did is I put a black embroidery thread for my top thread, and I wound a bobbin with the same exact thread so that on each side of the ornament it would look the same, right? We're going to lower the presser foot and it's going to stitch exactly the placement of this ornament. My table's a little bouncy. I think I need one of those pads that go underneath your embroidery machine. Who has one? Kim, this is a Baby Lock Altair 2. So it's a embroidery sewing machine combo. All right, so there is the placement of my little ornament, right? Perfect circle. I'm going to trim away that little knot. I don't know why it did that. But let's just trim all that extra threads away. There we go. The satin stitch will cover most of that right there. All right, so there's the back of the hoop and this is the front of the hoop, okay? So the first thing I want to do is place the photo that I want on the back of my ornament. So let's just turn that. Yep, that's the top. Let's just turn that over just like that. And what I'm going to do is pick one of these photos for the back. We'll use this one for the back. And I'm just going to fit it right over top of that circle, right? But I need for it to be sticky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of 505 spray, right? Temporary adhesive. And I'm going to lightly spray the back of this hoop, okay? But not over here. I'm going to move over here, okay? I don't like spraying that near my computer, near my machine, and all that stuff. And now I printed my picture a little bit bigger than that 4-inch circle. So we can just put it right over top and just double check on the other side that the picture is fitting inside there. I need to scoot it down just a little bit. And I'm just going to hold it up to the light right there just to make sure. I thought I put it on backwards. Just to make sure that there's going to be no white spots around the edges of my ornament, right? So there's the back of my ornament. Now, I created a little template to cut my batting, right? So I have some cardstock that I put through my scan and cut a 4-inch circle from cardstock. And I'm going to use that to cut 2 pieces of batting. And look how thin this batting is, right? This is just warm and natural batting. And I want to cut 2 circles from this batting. Now I did try to cut the batting on my scan and cut, and it made a mess, okay? So I don't know if you can get that to work or not, but I'm just going to cut it out by hand. I have a little scrap piece of plastic. I'm going to spray my little template with some 505 spray. Just a quick little spray. Let's move this over to the side for a minute. That's going to keep my template in place so that I can quickly cut out a circle that fits right inside of the circle in my hoop. There's my first circle, right? Let's see if it's sticky enough to grab on just for me to cut a second circle. Yep. I just want it to cling just long enough, right? Just to cut out a circle. Now I could trim the extra batting away, right? I could make my batting larger than that circle and just trim the extra away, but I have found that sometimes I'm not able to get close enough to the stitch line, and it leaves a little white fuzzy bit in my satin stitch. So I like to just go ahead and pre-cut my circles, and that really didn't take that long, right? So there's my 2 circles of batting. And now I don't have to trim that in the hoop. I am going to trim my extra fabric from my photo, but it won't have the batting in it. What else did I do? On my scan and cut, I cut out, and I thought, you know, I want something inside this ornament that's going to make it hold its shape. I want it to be soft, but for it to hold its shape, right? And I tried the cutaway stabilizer, and I could hear the crinkle of the paper. So I cut out a little thin piece of plastic, and let me show you what this is. This is from the Dollar Tree, y'all. I had cut the top of it off, but it's 2 pieces in this package from the Dollar Tree, and it's little flexible cutting boards, right? Thin plastic. I love to use it for like templates for applique and all kinds of stuff, right? And I have umpteen packs of this because sometimes you can find it and sometimes you can't. It comes, there's 2 pieces usually in here. That's what this is. But because it's a plastic, I did not want a chance of it being close to my satin stitch. So let me show you how big I cut this. This piece I cut at 3.5 inches so that it just fits inside that ornament to help stabilize and keep the shape, right? But it's nowhere close to where those satin stitches are going to be, right? So that's going to go in the middle. Let's bring this hoop back over here. All right, so my picture's on the back. I'm going to spray a piece of this batting and center that right in my shape. I think this might be the hardest part of the whole thing, making sure that you get everything inside that shape, right? Now I'm going to spray my little plastic piece, and I'm going to center that right in the middle. And I'm spraying it because I don't want it to shift and move, right? Like so. And I'm going to put a piece of batting over top of that. So she's going to be a puffy little ornament. See that? And now this is going to go right over top. Now I can feel the edges of that batting and just double check that the picture is going to be caught in the whole ornament. Now I cropped my picture with the little hanger so I would know exactly where that hanger is going to be, right? So I can position the photo like so. I'm going to scoot it over just a smidgen. So the next thing that's going to happen is the machine is going to stitch a tack down stitch, which is the same exact circle stitch that it made the first time, okay? So let's go back to the machine and do that. And she went to sleep. Oh no! Got a little pucker in it. And look, the very edge. I didn't center that very well, did I? That's okay. I think the satin stitch is going to cover that bit. And look, I got a little pucker. 2 layers of batting is a little thick. Let's come back here. You know what? I think that's going to be okay. Where are my good little clips? Here we go. So after the placement stitch or the tack down stitch, I'm going to trim all this extra fabric away, right? And I'm just trimming it away right next to that stitch, real nice and close. Circle shape is very easy and fast to cut. All right, so there's the front, right? I think that small little sliver of white where I didn't get it exactly in there right, I think that's going to be covered up by the satin stitch. Then we got to turn it over and trim away the back. Maybe I'll call the back the front for this ornament. It's a double-sided ornament, but the back I centered much better, and it doesn't have that little pucker on the back. So once I get this extra fabric trimmed away, what I have it do next is it'll stitch the little hanger and then go right into the satin stitch that finishes this ornament, right? All right, so there is the back and there is the front. So now we're ready just to put this right back in the machine, and it's going to do all the rest of our stitching is. Now comes the fun part, and we can just sit and watch it. So I changed the little hanger. Instead of being like a little pointed hanger, it's just a little curved hoop on the top. It's gonna stitch that first. And then it's gonna go straight into doing the satin stitch around the edge of the ornament. I chose a black thread because I think that that will match any ornament or any photo that I stitch, right? And I was just thinking, if the satin stitch doesn't cover that little tiny edge on my photo there, that I could take a black fabric marker and just touch it up. Ding, ding, ding. And I'll just have to be more careful about centering the photo on the top of the ornament. Beverly, you did make it. I saw where you might miss it today. So great to see ya. Y'all use the rotary blade to cut out the circles. That, I don't trust my hand when I'm nervous with the rotary blade. I mean, I use it a lot in my videos, but sometimes I have shaky hands. Dawn said, could you do an ornament like this in a hexagon shape? Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm going to show you how I designed this ornament in Embrilliance as soon as we unhoop this. And this whole stitch out takes 5 minutes in my machine at the speed that I have it going, right? So it doesn't take a really long time. And that's from doing the placement stitch, the tack down stitch, and then this final satin stitch. It's going over my little puckery section right now. Maybe I should have used some 505 on the photo itself too, instead of just putting it over top. I don't know why I didn't do that. Mimsy, Embrilliance is a software where you can work with purchased embroidery files and depending on what level of Embrilliance you have, you can digitize your own designs as well. Sheila asked, are you giving these as Christmas gifts or something? I might. I think it would be a super cute Christmas gift, don't you think? But I'm also going to offer this as a service in my Etsy shop. Thank you, Wanda. Thank you, Anne. This photo was actually taken a couple of years ago. Actually, this photo was taken, we had left Vermont. You can just see our camper in the background. We had left Vermont and we were on our way to Alexis's house. And we stopped at a park and had lunch and we took this photo. And that was before going through New York City in a camper, which was not fun. And we got lost on our way to Alexis's house. Painting with fabulous florals. I'm getting ready to show you, and it's a very simple design with Embrilliance. As soon as we get this out of the hoop, I do have some older videos on Embrilliance, but I'll tell you who I always recommend for Embrilliance tutorials is Lisa Shaw. If you do a YouTube search for Lisa Shaw Embrilliance, you'll come across her channel. I forget what her channel name is. Just like that. She's got a really cute channel name. But if you just type her name in Embrilliance, her channel will come up. So many tutorials. Everything you want to learn. So just like that, it's stitched the ornament. Doesn't that look great? So now we can take that out. I don't know that this will be maybe I'll keep this ornament, but because of my little pucker, I wouldn't give this one away as a gift. Next time I'll 505 spray the top fabric in place. Let me show you. All right, so that's the front. See my little pucker right there? Note to self, 505 the photo fabric on the top, because I didn't do that. That would have prevented that. But doesn't that look cute? So here's the back. Completely finished. Nice little stitch out. Isn't that great? All right, so let's go ahead and take this out of the hoop. I wanted to do one that fits in a 4x4 hoop, but I like the size of this ornament in the working space. So I do have a little bit of waste with the wash away, right? But y'all, I don't throw my wash away. All my little scraps, I save them because you might have a little project you need some with, but also for your freestanding lace ornaments, you can use this and melt it in some water and dissolve your freestanding lace ornaments in it, and it helps give it some stiffness so it holds its shape better. So even though I've used like a lot of extra wash away to hoop in a 5x7 hoop, this isn't wasted. There shall be other uses for it. Right? Now I'm going to use my scissors and just roughly cut around this. See? That's not thrown away. Now this does dissolve in water and my photo is sublimated, so it's not going to fade if I were to run this underwater. But I really love the shape of it. And you know how sometimes when you wet something, you never get it to look exactly nice and crisp and plump as it looked before you wet it, right? Case in point, when you finish a quilt and you've done your binding and it's all just freshly finished and it looks plump and flat and smooth and it looks perfect, right? And then you put it through the washer and it comes out and then now it looks quilty and cozy, right? It'll never look the way that it did before it went through that process. So I don't necessarily want to put this underwater, not because my photo will fade or run. It won't. It's sublimated. But because I just want it to stay nice and crisp, right? So what I've decided is that it's just as easy to go around and trim as much of this off by hand. And it really only just takes a second. I mean, look, just while I'm talking to you, I'm going to just trim right next to that satin stitch as close as I can get. See that? And that extra stabilizer right there is also going to help keep my hanger stiff, right? Because when I wet this, that extra bit of stabilizer all the way around is going to disappear, but it's going to stay as like, you know how you used to starch crocheted ornaments and things like that back in the day? That's what it's going to do to my hanger. So let me just show you. And I don't want to make a big wet mess. I'll put a little bit of water on this extra template I have. Like so. And let's just dip that hanger right in there. And because it's cold water, it's going to take a few minutes, right? But it's going to start dissolving that extra wash away off. And that's how I plan on getting rid of that. But I will tell you, I don't hear the crinkle of the paper using the plastic little piece inside. I actually like that a lot. So the third time's a charm with that, right? And if this had not have puckered, it would have had a beautiful little plumpness. See that? Don't go by my little pucker. But look at this side. See how it just looks like a quilted little ornament, right? I need to go through and just get rid of all that extra wash away there. But it's already starting to dissolve. See that? And it'll help keep the shape of my hanger. And I love the shape of that hanger so much more than this one. See that? So that's why they say, you know, when you get a new embroidery design or you're creating something yourself, it's kind of important to go through all those different testing, because you might not be happy with the first way that you did it, right? Or there might be something weird in the stitch out, or design wise you might want to make some changes, right? So third time's a charm though. I love this. I love this. Yeah, Betty said use a damp Q-tip and run it around the edge. Yes. Pamela said try to raise the foot on the next one to eliminate the pucker. I think that will help with the drag. I think because of the 2 layers of batting, I should have been really securing that fabric when it started, and I didn't. I was just holding it in one place down in the corner. But yes, I think my foot is high enough. I think I just didn't secure the fabric in place very well. And it just started stitching and kind of pulled it a little bit. But I absolutely love that ornament. So there you go. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can digitize your own shape. So even if you don't want to do photos on fabric, right? You could do your own little Christmas fabric ones. You could make it double-sided just the same way I did today, right? And you could do a monogram in here or something, right? So do you want to see that? So I'm going to switch over to Embrilliance now. Now, just know that I have Embrilliance Stitch Artist Level 3 now. But we're going to use simple shapes. And I believe that this is something you could do with Stitch Level Artist 1. I'm not sure about Enthusiast and all those other things. I always get confused on what all is included in each one of the different modules, right? But we're just drawing circles, right? And assigning stitches. So let's switch on over to Embrilliance. And I'm going to give it a second so that I can see that the video looks right on the screen before I move on. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Okay, I see we're up in Embrilliance, and I just have the 5x7 hoop set up on my screen, right? And I'm going to just show you real quick or just how easy it is to set up a stitch file for an ornament, okay? And so Dawn had asked if we could do a hexagon shaped ornament. So let's go ahead and do that, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and select a shape. And so I'm going to click on Merge Design. And when I do, I'm going to pick one of these shapes that's already in here. So let's pick the hexagon shape. And there's my hexagon shape right on the screen, right? And then I'm going to click on, let's see, select objects, right? Because when I do, I can see the size of my object right over here towards the left. And right now, the hexagon shape is 2 3/8 by 2 5/8, right? And I want to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to increase the size just by dragging out one of these corners here. Plus I want to make it bigger on the screen so that you can see it. So you'll reshape your shape however big you want it to be, right? So right now you can see that it's 4 inches from left to right. And it's 4 7/16 from top to bottom. Okay, and let's say that's perfect for what the ornament that we want to make. Okay, so over here in the objects menu over here on the right, you'll see we created our hexagon, and right now it's a line shape. Okay, there's no stitches on the screen whatsoever. So let's click on our line shape. And let's go to create. The first thing we did today is we stitched down a placement line, and that told us exactly where to place the materials in our hoop so that everything lined up. So the first thing we're going to do is create a placement line. So I'm just going to click on a running stitch. Over in the properties box over to the right, you'll see it. I have the option to change that running stitch, but I'm going to keep it a single stitch. And I'm going to change the length. I like a 2.0 millimeter running stitch as my placement. So there we go. We have our placement stitch, right? I'm going to come over here so we stay nice and organized. And I'm going to rename this first stitch placement. That just helps my brain know what we have created and what order everything is in, right? Now from here on out is pretty simple until we get to the hanger, right? So we have our placement stitch, and if you look on the screen, it just assigned it an orange thread, right? We can change the color of that if you wanted to change it. We're just going to keep it simple. We're going to stay with orange. So the first thing it's going to do is stitch out the hexagon shape in our hoop. We're going to remove the hoop and layer all of our objects in the hoop. We're going to put the hoop back on the machine, right? So the next thing we want is a tack down stitch. We want to duplicate the same exact stitch, but it's going to hold all of our materials in place in the hoop, right? So I'm going to click on this placement stitch, and I'm going to right click on my mouse and I'm going to hit copy. And then I'm going to right click on my mouse and I'm going to hit paste over. So if you see that over here where my mouse is on the right, now I have two placement stitches. And when I click on them, they're both orange. So without changing the color of the thread, what would actually happen is the first time the hoop went in the machine, it would stitch out two hexagons right on top of each other. We need to add a color stop so the machine will stop after the first placement before it stitches out this tack down stitch. So let's just go ahead and change the name of this one to tack down. Let's change the thread color away from the orange. And we just picked a dark khaki. It doesn't so much matter the color, right? It just tells the embroidery machine to stop before the next stitch. So over here in the objects menu, you'll see that there are two different colors. The machine will stop in between each one of these stitches. Now the third thing that we want to create is a satin stitch, what finishes off the edges of our ornament. So I'm going to click on the tack down stitch and I'm going to hit copy and I'm going to right click and say paste over. Before we move on, let's go ahead and change the name of this to the satin stitch. Right now it's just a running stitch. We're going to change that here in just a second. And right now it's the same exact color as our tack down stitch. So let's go ahead and change that, right? Because we don't want it to start the satin stitch directly after the tack down stitch. So let's just randomly pick another color. And let's come up to this top menu bar. And currently, because we copy and pasted it, it was just a straight running stitch. But if we come over to a satin border stitch and click that, it has changed the properties from a running stitch to a satin stitch. Now you have all kinds of controls. You can change the width of your satin stitch in the properties box, right? You can make it a little bit wider like that. You can also change the density of your satin stitch. Generally, I like a 4.0, but if you need to increase or decrease the density, you can do that here as well. So let's just take a look. Let's go to the Stitch Simulator and take a look at this bar. So right now we have three color stops, right? The orange is the placement. The dark khaki is your tack down stitch, and after that you'll cut away all your extra fabric, right? And then you'll put the hoop back in and it will do your satin stitch, right? So let's just take a look at that. There is your placement. Now it's doing a tack down, and now it goes into doing the satin stitch, right? The only thing we need left, if you want to add a little hanger to this ornament, is to add that. So we're going to do that next. We're just going to watch this stitch out, make sure there's nothing funny going on with our satin stitch. I can actually make it go a little bit faster. There we go. I don't know why I get mesmerized watching that. All right, let's come back over here to create. So we have our ornament. We have all of the different stitches and the different placement, tack down, and satin. Let's come in here and create a little hanger. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can actually see real nice and close. We're going to zoom in right towards the top of this ornament. Now I've done my hangers a couple of different ways, but I'm going to tell you I really like this little loop, just a little loop at the very top. I think that's super cute, right? So let's come over to under the create, right? We have some different options and we can draw with points and we can draw with Bezier curves. Let's just click draw with points. So when you click on that, your stitches are going to be hidden, right? But I can see the line that we use to create our stitches. So I'm going to click right there and right there, and see the little black line that it created. And I'm just going to hit enter. And then I'm going to hover over that black line and I'm going to drag it up just like this. I can click on the two little nodes and it gives me handles at this point, and I can adjust the shape of this hanger, right? See that? But I want my hanger to start underneath of that satin stitch. So that's why I didn't start above it. I've started in the middle of that satin stitch. Okay, that's going to secure the hanger in that satin stitch of the ornament. So once I get my shape where I like it, I can come right up here and I can hit satin border. And there is my little satin hanger. And I like to pay real close attention to this, the way the stitches are aligned. We can make them, we can tweak them a little bit so that they look nice and neat. See that? And the beginning and the end will start underneath of this satin stitch. Now, while we're right here and you see the little green and the little red bows, right? That's where the needle is going to start where it's green and stop where it's red. Now, I really like my starts and stops to kind of be in the same point because it's going to create a lot less knots on the back of my work. And especially since this is a double-sided ornament, I want to create as little stops as possible. So let's just come back here for a second and let's click off of everything. And I want you to pay attention real quick to the order of the items on the screen, right? Because we created our hanger last, it has placed the stitches on top of that satin stitch of the hexagon. And I don't like that, right? I want that to be underneath of or to be stitched before the satin stitch of the hexagon. So let's come over here in the objects box. Hopefully I haven't lost y'all. I'm going to click on the satin border and I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say move earlier. And it's going to stitch out the little hanger first. And now if you can see that the ends of the hanger are hidden inside of the hexagon satin stitch. See that? And it gives it a nice clean appearance on both sides of the ornament. And that's kind of important since we're doing a double-sided ornament. The next thing I want to just tweak before we call it finished, right? Because for all intents and purposes, there is our ornament. But I like to just keep the work nice and neat and have only one little start and stop point. I'm going to keep the thread color the same. So what it's actually going to do is it's going to start stitching my hanger first, right? it's going to start right here, and it's going to stitch this hanger right over here. And then it's going to go directly into start stitching my hexagon. I keep wanting to say circle. It's not a circle. But if we zoom out, I want you to see the start place for the hexagon is all the way over here. So what would happen is it's going to create a jump stitch right over our ornament right over here and just start stitching the satin stitch of our hexagon too. And you're going to be like, why did it jump and not just start stitching in the same place? So we need to move our start and stops, right? I'm going to drag the little red bow, the stop point for my hanger, so that it starts and stops in the same exact place. Now I'm going to click on the satin stitch for my ornament, and I'm going to move the start to be right there and the stop to be right there. So I'm going to have one tie off on my ornament, one little set of threads to trim up and clean up, because I only have one place that's going to finish up this ornament where it starts and stops in that same point. See that? That's going to give us a nice clean finish, very little cleanup to do on this ornament. So let's just zoom out again. There's our ornament, the hexagon, and we're just going to play that real quick. And I always just like to run through the stitch simulator before I save my, or before I transfer it to the machine, right? So there is our hexagon ornament. Now you're ready to stitch it out. But if you just take a screenshot, right, of the objects you need to create, you can do it with any shape, right? You have your placement stitch, that's one color. Your tack down stitch, which is a copy and paste, change the color. And then you can create your satin, well, I usually do my shape first and then my hanger, right? So I can kind of get an idea of how wide I want my satin stitch to be. Then I create my hanger, but don't forget to move the hanger to stitch first before the body of the ornament. That's going to bury the hanger inside that border and secure it in place, right? Was that a lot? Was that too much? All right. Me. There we go. And let me pull this back. Could you use the scan and cut to cut out the hexagon? Sure. Sure. Yeah, you could absolutely do that. Donna said, this is awesome. Great teacher. I hope I didn't go through too fast. The beauty of watching on the replay, though, is that you can pause it and take notes, right? Or you can pause it on the screen and then flip back and forth in Embrilliance. And you do one part, flip back to me, see what I do, pause it, go do it, right? And just go back and forth that way on the replay. Danielle, you're sneaking in on Friday. Are you busy today? Danielle, we have the 3-day quilt retreat, not this weekend, but next weekend. Don't forget. Sharon said, I understood everything you did. I'm so glad, Sharon. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you. Yeah, Mimsy said, if you're familiar with like the embroidery machine and the language of the program, right? But if you don't have those things, it's like talking a different language. I totally get it. I totally get it, y'all. I love this little ornament though. I just have to melt the little edges right there. And I still have a little bit, it's melted away on the edges of my hanger, but there's still a little bit right in the very center. I just need to take time to do that. But even with the little pucker, it's super cute, right? Isn't that so cute? I love that. You could do baby's first Christmas, first year in our new house, graduation year, right? All kinds of milestones. I also, guess what else I'm getting today? Mouse pads that I can sublimate. I have been so distracted with all kinds of stuff, y'all, and I am knee deep in a t-shirt quilt. Do you want to see how far I've gotten along in that? Not as far as I should have. I can tell you that right now. Between the farm stand, designing ornaments, all kinds of other stuff, I should be much further along in this t-shirt quilt than I am. But I plan on working on that tomorrow. Thank you, Hazel. Hazel said I lost her 10 minutes ago. I'm glad you're still hanging out with us though, Hazel. After the teaching part, there's always the hangout part, so. Patsy, I'm so glad. Yeah, Sharon wants a picture of Prince. Y'all, Prince is Sharon's dog. And he is quite the handsome fellow. Gail, it'll be your first weekend back in your craft room. How'd your knee replacement go? I know my mom, when she had hers, it was kind of rough going for a few days, but now she's so glad she did it, right? It was a little rough recovering. Let me pull this chunks of t-shirt quilt. I'm going to tell you what, I miss my design wall so much. This is my t-shirt quilt, and like only me, because I'm the one who did it, would understand what all of this is, right? I miss my design wall so much. That's one of the few things I miss about that house. Let me move my ornaments so I don't lose them. Let me just show you the chunks of progress I've made. Dun, 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 dun. So there's a chunk, right? You can see my little organizer. I have my tabs. Once I start making chunks, I don't keep the tabs on everything, but I keep the tab on one piece so I know in my grid where this chunk goes. Because when you have multiple chunks, it's hard to keep track of everything. I used little bits of all of her shirts to fill in some empty areas. And I think it'll add some pops of color and some interest, right? So that's one chunk. I don't think she has anything personal on these, so I can share. Look, isn't that so cute? There's another little chunk that goes on the side of that chunk after two more chunks are made. And then I do have a bigger chunk. So check this out. Isn't that cool? Let me show you the grid. So when I say chunks, I start assembling. This is a collage style. So all those shirts are cut at different sizes and sewn together like a puzzle, right? Let me pull up that grid so you can just see my progress. I'm going to save that little hexagon shape. Hold on a second. Save. Yes. Hold on a second. Let's save that. Because that, I like the hexagon ornament. Did you like it? Save as Hexi Ornament. All right, I'm not just tossing that out. Let's save that. Let me open up this grid real quick so y'all can see my chunks of my t-shirt quilt. Tammy, this quilt is going to be 80 inches by 80 inches. She had 48 logos to fit in this quilt. I wanted the quilt to be a little bit smaller, like I was hoping like 65 by 65 or something like that, right? Kind of a little bit smaller, but to fit in everything she had, I had to increase the size. Hold on one second. I'm just getting that grid open so you can see. All right, there she is. I'll give it a second just to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. Evelyn said, I think I'm going to try that digitizing thing. You play around with it a little bit. You'll be surprised at how quickly you learn and you catch on, right? Give it a try, Evelyn. Hazel, I'm so glad I could cheer you up. That makes my day. All right, yeah, you can see what I have on my screen. So here we go. Here are all of my logos. So here's my progress so far, right? Because when I first started, it all looked like this, right? But the big chunk that I showed you at the end, that's this whole section colored in. That's one big chunk now. And then I showed you two smaller sections, right? So the very first section I showed you, that's this section here. And then the second section I held up for you was these three shirts sewn together. So my plan is to sew these together and then sew these two sections here, right? And then I have to make something to fit here. I think I'm going to do like a 4-patch of extra fabric from her shirts that'll go in right there. It'll get sewn to t-shirt number 14. And then that section will get sewn onto this section. And then it'll get sewn right there in that seam. And then all of this will be one big chunk. And then I'll move down here, right? And I'll work on this. And because that seam is straight down, I can join this to this section, right? So it's much like a puzzle, and we're just building it as we go along. So all of this will be one section at some point, hopefully by the end of tomorrow. Then if we move over here, I see that this seam goes straight down here, right? And then there will be a seam that goes straight down here. So I can assemble all of this together and join all of this as one section that'll go to the bottom of that first section. And then I have one long section down the side that I'll have to sew together that'll get sewn from the top to the bottom right there. That's all I have left to do. Thank you, Evelyn. What's the silver? Hold on a second. There's a heart in part of your I'm looking at the comments on my phone, so hold on one second. What's that silver machine in the background? I'm thinking, hold on one second. I'm thinking you're talking about that one, right? That's my long arm. Which the other day we turned that little heater on, because let me tell you that there was a gale blowing through this room that was chilly. Like 2 days ago. So it was the first day that we turned that little heater on, and it's a propane heater. So I scooted it away from the wall a little bit, my machine. But I couldn't, that's as far as I could scoot it, y'all, because I have t-shirts. Pardon me. You can just see that red right there? There's t-shirts on both bars. Just hanging where I've separated the fronts from the backs and tagged and measured, sorted by color, and they're hanging on the bars. So when the temps fell the other day and we turned that on, that's as far as away as I could move that thing. Tammy, I used Inkscape. I have quite a few videos here on my YouTube where I demonstrate using Inkscape and my grid sets and how to create your own grid in Inkscape. Memsy said, is that all? Yeah, that's all I have left to do on that quilt. Dawn said, I've decided I don't like t-shirt quilts. Maybe if I had a nice press like yours, but I can't stand the ironing on the stabilizer. It takes forever. Dawn, have you seen my video where I use my Cricut Easy Press? That is a much affordable way of getting a press that works quickly. Yesterday, so I'm not even using my big heat press to press the stabilizer on all these shirts, okay? I'm using my Cricut Easy Press. It's the large one, so it's like 10 by 12 or something like that. And I have my pressing board. It's plugged in over there, or I would show you, right? I have it plugged directly into an outlet versus if I had it here, it would be plugged into a strip. And this thing needs full juice, right? So it's over there. But I have a video here on my channel showing using it. 20 seconds is all it takes, and it bonds the Pelon P44F very nicely. And I do 20 seconds a logo, and I move it, right? So if my logo is bigger than the press, I'll do 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, done. Quick and easy. My big press, I'm kind of just reserving, you know, that was an investment. And I do so good with the sublimation, right? So I only turn the big press on when I'm doing photos and stuff like that. And plus, I mean, we're just coming out of the summer, so I really only like to turn that thing on when it's absolutely necessary. Now, the big press will be a welcome piece of machinery moving forward as we get cooler in here, because when you turn that on, it warms up that whole area up there. So it'll actually be nice working at the big press when I need to. But yeah, the last several t-shirt quilts I did, I just used my Cricut Easy Press and worked through the shirts really quickly. Yes, Mr. Bobbins. That's my long arm. Thank you so much, Elaine. Elaine, was that you that had gone through, was it this morning or last night, and commented on a couple of videos? You were watching some videos. Are you the same, Elaine? I thought that was so nice. Tammy, I think she asked if that was a queen size. I think it's a little bit smaller than a queen, right? When I think queen size, I think at least like 88 by 88. So it's a little shy of that. In my thought process, it's a little shy of a queen size. Debbie said, I need to get busy on the t-shirt quilt that I need to get done before I get married in January. I finally got the t-shirts back. Well, you know what, Debbie? You blink an eye and January is going to be here. That is how fast the time and the weeks are going by. Let me just tell you. Before you know it, you're going to be celebrating your 1-year anniversary. That's how fast things are going. Evelyn said, can I add a design into the center of that hexie and have it embroider out in the machine? Absolutely. Do you want to go back? And I'm glad I saved it. Hold on a second. So what I would do, let me just open that back up. File, open. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure it's showing the right. Debbie, I'm sure y'all are counting the days and the minutes. I'm sure you are. All right, yeah. So what I would do, if we look over here in this objects box, right, I would do everything the same order. Do your placement stitch, do your tack down stitch, do your ornament shape, and then your hanger. Move your hanger before your ornament shape. That's the order I like to do things in. You can do what works for you, right? But once you have your ornament stitch out completed, right? Like this is all done. And you could make an ornament just like I did today, right? But let's say you want to put someone's name in the ornament, right? Instead of doing photos or whatever. So at this point, once you have all those elements designed, you can come back in. You could add, let's say you purchased a design off of Etsy or Designs by Juju, you know, any place that fits inside your ornament. Now you could add it in there, right? But let's just say we want to say, Merry Christmas from the Capens. Let's just say we want to do that. Set. So let's go pick our font. We would need a small little font. Oh, that's too little, but of course you would go through, right, and pick how big everything was, right? And you could just design it like that. So there you go. I would bring the word, bring it in a little bit tighter, right, with that particular font. But there we go. So it would stitch out the complete ornament, right? Even the edging. And then it would stop, and then it would come in and do your little sentiment inside the ornament. Thank you, Delia. Thank you. So that's how you could add that in there. I like that a lot, right? So just know that at this point, right, like at this point, the stitching would show on the front and the back of the ornament. So like if I were to use a photo printed on the back of my ornament, the stitching would show on the back of this, right? Because the stitching is the last thing that's going to happen on this particular setup. But if you were just doing like some pretty fabric on both sides and then have the ornament say something really nice, right, and have it stitch out, that would show on the back. And if you're doing that, don't use plastic in the middle of your ornament like I did today. Right? Don't do that. Because I knew I was not stitching inside this ornament, right? I used a piece of template plastic just inside the very middle, which gives this ornament some nice body and some shape to it, right? But if you know you're stitching in the middle of it, don't use this. But isn't that super cute? If you wanted words on one side and the photo on the other, right? In the very beginning, I wouldn't put the photo on the back side of the hoop, right? I would do the placement stitch. I would do 2 layers of batting, 1 layer, 2 layers, whatever, and put your top fabric down that you want to stitch on, and then trim away all that after the tack down stitch. And then I would have it stitch out whatever you want it to say and stop, and then remove the hoop, add your photo on the back, put the hoop back in, and then back up to like your placement stitch and have it do a placement stitch again in the design, right? Take the hoop off, trim away the extra fabric, put it back on, and then skip forward to doing the satin stitch. And that's how you could do a double-sided stitched on one side with photo on the other. Or you could design it that way in your lineup, right? Oh yeah, see, y'all know. Thank you, Robin. Brenda, I hope you do try it. I hope you do. You'll have to let me know how it goes. And just to show you, so you know how I talked about moving the start and the stop with the needle all in one place so you only have one little trim to clean up on your ornament? Let me show you that. So it's going to be hard to see, but see that one little thread right there? That's one little tie off on this whole ornament, right? That needs to be trimmed right there. That's it. Because that's where the needle started and stopped each time it did the satin stitch for the hanger and the outside of my ornament. One little place to clean up. That's it. Oh yeah, Wanda said she was thinking she could do the words on the fabric and then cut the shape out and add it like we did the photos. You could absolutely do it that way too. Seems like a little bit more work, hooping stuff, where you could do everything in the hoop, right? But you could absolutely do that. So what are y'all doing this weekend? I'm sewing some t-shirt quilt together. I'm going to attempt to. We also have a bunch of tomatoes that did not sell in the farm stand that I need to preserve. I don't know if I'm going to start that tonight or if I'll do that tomorrow. Don't you love like homemade tomato sauce though? Let me tell you, I did not do a intro video of updates because, just to be honest, what I was saying, you know, before you know it'll be January. Before I knew it, it was Thursday night, and usually I make my intro video on Thursdays, so it's ready to go for Friday. It was Thursday night, and I was like, there's something I'm forgetting to do because this week just flew by. But yeah, we've been busy. I did some freeze-dried zucchinis, shredded zucchinis. Those are fabulous. Let me just tell you. They're so good. Sprinkled on a salad or in a soup. Yum. What else have we been doing? I made some signs for the farm stand out there. It's funny how a hobby farm stand can turn into a lot of work real quickly. But that part's done for the most part. All the work getting it ready. Kimberly's hoping to finish her Sunday Stars quilt top. Yay! Evelyn's going to be sewing a stackable Halloween pattern. The farm stand is doing fantastic. It really is. Have you seen a picture of it yet, Hazel? Has the cow showed up? Nope. No cows. But you know what has shown up? 12 more chickens. That's what showed up. He got 12 more chickens last weekend. So yesterday we got 18 plus 6. What is that? 24 eggs yesterday. 24 eggs yesterday. Let me see if I can pull up a video, not a video, a picture of this farm stand before we go. Let me find it. Wow, that's humongous. Let me shrink it down some. Here we go. There's our little farm stand. So we got a cooler for the eggs. I did the vinyl letters for the cooler, and I made the signs that are in there and little pricing things. There's our pumpkins and the produce inside the stand. I made a Facebook page for it. But now that all that stuff is set up, we are working on little signs that hang off of the wood post you see on the right where the chalkboard is. So it'll say different things that we have in the farm stand. But we're a little tiny bit bummed that in Virginia, the food cottage laws, it was so confusing to figure that stuff out, y'all. But evidently, I can't just bake bread and put it in the farm stand here in Virginia. So that's a bummer. I can't just cook cookies and put them in my farm stand for sale. I guess they consider that a store. So if I wanted to do that, I would have to have the kitchen inspected. And in order to pass the inspection, I would have to have permanent doors. One right there, blocking the pantry, and one to our kitchen. Well, no, I don't want to do that. And so that would mean that the cats couldn't walk through the kitchen to go out the back door. And that's the door we prefer them to go outside through. They walk through the kitchen to go out the back door. And when we let them in, they come to that door. We let them in and they walk through the kitchen to come back in, right? So we would never pass inspection. And plus, I'd have to have a whole setup of special pots and all, everything's separate from our own personal stuff. Well, we don't have the space for that. So no inspection. So that means I can't just make stuff and put it out in the stand. But according to food cottage laws in Virginia, and I talked to the lady who was so friendly, and I can sell bread, but people have to come to my door and come inside my house to purchase it from me. That's covered under food cottage law, but not making the bread and putting it in the stand on my property. That's not covered by food cottage law. Do you know how many? I had to go to the zoning, I had to go to the county, I went to the health department twice, and then I had to call and leave a message and then talk to that lovely lady there just to find that out. But each state is different, but here in Virginia, that's how it is. Sharon says, you would have to go through the health department to serve the public. So each state is different. I went to the health department. They're fine here in Virginia and in my county. It's the Virginia state. Someone's at our door. Hold on one second, y'all. I'm going to go blank for just a second. She said she cannot order about my episode of working with you, and I said I didn't do very well. Are you busy? If you are, let me put that up till it's done. Oh, you were? Okay. Are you losing time? Hold on one second. Okay. Can I show her your quilt ribbon? Give me 1 second. Let me turn off the live, and then you can come in. I got you. Now I'm reading. Okay, y'all, I have visitors. So I'm going to go. I love y'all so much. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Again, because it's on the replay, if you're interested in learning about the process we did in the hoop today with the ornament or how I digitized it, come back on the replay, pause it, take notes, or go back and forth in Embrilliance, right? If you have questions, you can leave them down in the comment section. I try to be quick with that, but y'all, it's just so much. All the ways to get in touch with me, though, are down in the description box, okay? Y'all have a fantastic weekend. I'll see y'all next Friday, right before the quilt retreat starts. Bye, everybody.